So then the insuring clause is probably the most important for professionals, physicians and hospitals. This is the scope of the coverage. This is what you're actually covering. And other important terms. And then equally important is the exclusion clause. That provides what is not covered quite clearly. And you may find it hard to believe, but criminal acts as a matter of public policy aren't covered by insurance policies. The unfortunate thing, of course, is that medical malpractice is capable of being, in UE law, is capable of being a criminal act. So we'll come to that later. We'll discuss that in greater detail later. I don't quite know what happened to the general conditions part, but that it talks about your choice of law and jurisdiction, what law governs the contract. You have notification, how claims should be notified to an underwriter. And then the last part is the endorsements. That adds on, it sort of bolts on certain coverage items to the main policy. For example, you can get plastic surgery type endorsements bolted on. Plastic surgery is not generally covered. Usually the procedure has to be for a therapeutic or diagnostic reason. So if you have a plastic surgery, sometimes that's excluded, and you're bolting it back on with these endorsements. Any questions? I think that's general insurance structure. If you haven't seen an insurance policy, raise your hand. I think you've all seen. Oh, you haven't seen an insurance policy?
I don't look at it.
You don't look at it? Alright, okay. Maybe you should start looking at it. Yes? Make sure that your premium's correct, your coverage correct, and the exclusions are what you think they are. Now, a good broker, if you have a broker should highlight these aspects to you. And there are lots of good brokers in Dubai and in the UAE, so there's no excuse not to get that type of advice. Okay, well, look, we'll just get through. This is what a schedule sort of looks like. It clearly identifies the type of insurance, medical malpractice insurance. Sometimes medical insurance, people think that medical expenses insurance and medical malpractice insurance are part and parcel of the same thing. They're not. They're completely separate. Medical malpractice insurance is liability insurance and dealing with errors and omissions and negligence arising from professional practice. And your medical expenses insurance is simply an underwriter's agreement to pay your medical expenses. They're two completely separate insurances. So, the trigger, claims made. So that means that if a claim's made in the policy period, on the face of it, there should be coverage subject to policy terms and conditions. So here we have the assured. In our example, in our worked example, in our scenario, we have first-class hospital and first-class clinic. They are the two insured parties. Sometimes you'll see a schedule, a reference to a schedule, where all of the physicians have to be identified. All of the medical professionals have to be identified with their specialities. But that's more usually done when the proposal form, the application form for the insurance, is filled in. That's where you expect to see the list of the medical professionals and their specialities. The big three, of course, for medical malpractice insurers are cardiologists, as you can expect, gynecologists and neurologists. They're the big three risky specialities. Dentistry and general practice tend to be at the lower end of risk, and therefore the higher risk items, the higher risk areas attract the higher premiums. So here, I beg your pardon? Neurology. Cardiology, gynecology, neurology. They're called.
Neurology, not the neurosurgeon.
Huh?
Neurology, not the neurosurgeon.
Neurologist. Yeah. Well, Each speciality comprised the higher risk specialities from all the different specialities.
What about anesthesia?
Well, funny you should say that. That's the fourth. But the big three, certainly in my experience in Dubai, most claims have an anesthesiologist impact and input. So very astute to pick that up. It's certainly number 4. Okay, so we're looking at here the forum law and jurisdiction, United Arab Emirates. So the insurance and policy is governed by UAE law, and the UAE courts have jurisdiction to hear disputes under it. You see here annual premium 350,000. That tends to be a bit higher now. When I first came to Dubai in 1998, there was an insurance company who shall remain nameless who were my clients. I came as a shipping lawyer, actually, that used to give away free medical malpractice coverage with this automobile insurance and building and contents. It was just added on free. So those days are gone, I'm afraid. And you see here the deductible. That means that every claim, the first 35,000 dirhams, and that's quite a low deductible. I do see a number of hospitals that have a high claims record that you could easily make that $35,000, and it wouldn't be out of the ballpark. So the rest of it, all these the conditions, these are Lloyd's of London standard wording, LSW, Lloyd's standard wording. Lloyd's, of course, is the birthplace of insurance, or modern insurance. Lloyd's of London. It's been around since the 17th century. So London Lloyd's especially, has a unique experience of underwriting, which of course by that I mean how to calculate the financial aspect of the risk, i.e. how much to charge in premium. So that's where the real expertise is. Unfortunately, there isn't that type of expertise in the UAE yet. It's coming, but it's not there yet. So then, this, just for the sake of the example, this policy is dated the 15th of February 2014, and it's signed on behalf of Physicians Friend Insurance Company, PSC. Now, I'll ask you a quick question. What's special about this type of contract that you might notice just by what's here? What's special about the insurance contract? Well, lots of contracts have durations.
Amount of figures, when you read something like millions and then thousands, which mean
Yeah. I know it blinds me too.
Signed on behalf of somebody?
Correct. Well done. It's only signed by the insurance company. It's not signed by the insured. You would normally expect a contract to be signed by both parties. That's the conventional approach to contract. It's signed by both parties. Now, the way that the English law has developed is that when you make an application for insurance in a proposal form, that's where you sign, and that's where you're bound by the terms of the wording. But in terms of the policy itself, it's only signed by an insurance company. Okay.
I have one question. In the limits, it says only one loss. This means that if a case happens and the insurance covered it, the second case will not be taken in the same year?
No, I'm sorry, I should have actually pointed out, if you look just beneath the retroactive date, you'll see the limit. So that's got 3 million, that's like $1 million, any one loss, and 5 million dirhams in the aggregate. So that means all your claims can only approach to 5 million.
Yeah.
Anything above that is uninsured.
Yeah.
You don't have insurance. You will effectively have burned through your insurance, and as a matter of contract, nothing will be liable. You won't be liable above this. As opposed to your motor policy, your car policy, your limit for third parties, not on you, on third parties, despite the fact that your insurance, your motor insurance policy will say it's 500,000 dirhams, is unlimited. Regardless of what the UAE law says, for motor liability for third parties, it's unlimited. So it could be 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, doesn't matter. Your insurance company may argue about that, but the law's clear, it's unlimited. So, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Yes. So you have an aggregate limit, that's all your claims in 1 year can only be up to 5 million, and it also includes your legal costs and expenses. All right. 5 million dirhams is not a huge amount as far as insured amounts. I would reckon that a hospital with 400 beds, say, quite a big hospital, should be looking at 10 or 15 million as a reasonable sum insured. We'll get to this in a minute, but for a number of different reasons, the amount awarded by the courts is relative to other jurisdictions small. I mean, everyone looks at the newspaper, like for the UK or United States, and they see $20 million awarded for someone who's been put in a coma or something like this. These are different ballpark figures. They're simply unsustainable in the UAE. You just don't get those amounts. In the UK, in the US, there are different legal systems, and not to get too ahead of myself, in the US, damages can be awarded to punish. Punitive damages can be awarded to punish someone. That's mostly because of juries, but under UAE law, punitive or exemplary damages are forbidden. Okay. So this is your standard claims made aggregate policy. Okay, it's got with defence costs, that's your lawyer's costs included within the indemnity. As you expect, it's got a certain amount of formal language, but the main thing here is the underwriters, that's the insurance company, hereby agree to indemnify. That means to pay an amount. Indemnify means to pay an amount to the insured. Assured is a slight misnomer. Assurance is really for life assurance, but sometimes it should be insured. But to indemnify